Funding for this edition of Remember Them with Steve Adubato and Jacqui Tricarico has been provided by PSEG Foundation, NJM Insurance Group, serving New Jersey's drivers, homeowners, and business owners for more than 100 years. Community Food Bank of New Jersey, the New Jersey Education Association, Horizon Blue Cross Blue Shield of New Jersey, Kane University, where Cougars climb higher, New Jersey Sharing Network, and by the Russell Berry Foundation, making a difference. Promotional support provided by NJ.com, keeping communities informed and connected. And by ROINJ, informing and connecting businesses in New Jersey.
Hi, everyone. Steve Adubato. This is Remember Them. That is Jacqui Tricarico, our co-anchor. Jacqui, today we do an entire half hour on an extraordinary young man who died, who was from Newark, who died tragically, who made a difference in his very short life. The book cover of The Short and Tragic Life of Robert Peace, a brilliant young man who left Newark for the Ivy League. The interview everyone will see was, the first one is with Jeff Hobbs, who wrote this book. That is the book that, in fact, turned into the movie, the film about Rob Peace. And in the second interview, we'll interview Father Edwin Leahy, the headmaster at St. Benedict's Prep. That was where Rob Peace went to school, changed his life, but then went back to teach. But Rob Peace was an extraordinary young man who died way too young. Talk to folks a little bit, Jacqui, about why we remember Rob Peace.
It's an interesting story that Jeff Hobbs brought to light. He was his roommate at Yale University and got to know Rob in a certain aspect of his life. But after he tragically was killed in Newark, years later, Jeff decided to learn more about his friend and what his life was like before he got to Yale University.
He didn't know that whole other life in the streets, engaged in drug dealing and violence. Pick it up, Jacqui.
Yeah, and Jeff knew a little bit. He knew some things that were going on in the dorm room and stuff like that. But he decided to start talking to his family and his friends back in Newark, especially his mom, and just learning more about this young man and his life and what led to these tragic events. He wrote this book, and it was picked up by a few different people that wanted to do a movie about it. And that's where a lot of the press is coming from. Recently, the movie was released this past August 2024. Sundance Film Festival was shown there and got a lot of attention. So, we get to talk to Jeff, a little bit more personal story, as well as, like you said, Father Ed, the young man that he knew in Newark, where he went to St. Benedict's Prep. His mom worked so hard to save up the money so her son could go there and make a better life for himself. And in the movie, Michael Kelly, the actor Michael Kelly from House of Cards, he plays Father Ed.
But also Rob Peace's mom in the film is played by the great Mary J. Blige.
Yeah.
But, beyond the fabulous actors who are in the film, I mean, it is a short and tragic life of Rob Peace. I mean, so talented, so smart, so much grit to come from what he came from in the streets of Newark, in a poor neighborhood, in a drug-infested, violent, crime-ridden neighborhood, to go to Yale.
And so many people after he left Yale, so many people said, don't come back. Family, friends said, don't come back here, but he wanted to go
Newark.
back in Newark, give back, teach at St. Benedict's, right. Give back to that community. And that's what he was passionate about.
It's a tragic story. It's an important story. And so go get the book, about Rob Peace, the short and tragic life of Rob Peace, but also check out the film. But check out this first conversation with the person who wrote the book, the author, Jeff Hobbs. And in the second half, you'll see our great friend, Father Edwin Leahy, who's been the headmaster of St. Benedict's Prep since 1973, and knew Rob very well. And it's important that we remember Rob Peace, as young as he was, the impact he had, and the tale that all of us can learn from his life, his legacy, and his tragic death. Let's check it out.
So that's 22.5 times 2. Huh? 45 plus 11.25 is 56.25.
Damn. Can't be 7 years old smarter than your old man. Hang on. All right. We can walk to my place from here. Oh.
That was the last day I remember being a child.
I did not commit this crime.
The jury finds the defendant, Robert E. Douglas, guilty.
I'm gonna take care of everything. I promise.
You're going to college. The best thing you could do for your daddy is to keep being brilliant.
You got into jail!
We're now joined by Jeff Hobbs, author of the book Over My Left Shoulder, The Short and Tragic Life of Robert Peace, a brilliant young man who left Newark for the Ivy League. Jeff, good to see you.
Thank you so much, Steve. I'm glad to see you too.
Who was Robert Peace, other than how my colleague Jacqui Tricarico and I introduced him leading to this, and why is his life, his legacy, and his death so significant to you as his former roommate at Yale?
Well, Rob, to me, as you said, he was my roommate for 4 years in college, and that just meant that most of our time was spent sitting around in a very small dorm room talking about nothing that important, mostly sports and food and girls and that sort of thing. And he helped me out a lot in all respects. But I think what made Rob important and what led to writing a book about him had to do with this just vast orbit, this vast constellation of people who cared about him and would have done anything to help him, and maybe couldn't because he wouldn't let them. And so what seems important about his life is if someone you care about struggling, just ask what's going on.
So he comes out of Newark, by the way, born in East Orange, connected to Newark. He's at St. Benedict's Prep, and we've done so many interviews and conversations with Father Edwin Leahy, the headmaster there, who is featured in a film that is based on the book, because Father Edwin played a strong and important part in Robert Peace's life. So he's at Yale. He's studying science, microbiology. He's apparently a good student. And he's in the Ivy League, but he has another life. And the life is on the streets in Newark. His life is connected to drugs, and ultimately which led to his death that we'll talk about. To what degree did you see and understand, Jeff, that Robert Peace had a very different life, as we all do outside of our college dorms, but incredibly different, and the dichotomy couldn't be more stark and scary?
Sure. That is another part of writing the book, had to do with when he died, and people were characterizing Rob as two separate individuals. This guy who went to Yale and studied molecular biophysics and biochemistry, straight A student, about as easy as it sounds, and was captain of the water polo team, and high school and college. Yeah, a guy who sold drugs back home and in college out of our dorm room. He wasn't
He
quiet
did.
about it.
Was it primarily marijuana?
Yeah, it was all marijuana. And so, you know, this is back in the 2000, 2001, 2002. And so, yeah, to me, you know, I was an athlete and not quite a part of that circle, but it meant a lot of people were just coming through the room and hanging out, and maybe people who felt out of place at Yale, and Rob was a comfort to them, and they had this group, and you know, selling drugs didn't seem like the smartest thing, but it seemed like something he could do and maybe needed to do because he was poor. And it seemed, since we're talking about marijuana in the college dorm, it seemed safe.
He leaves Yale and he chooses to go back and teach at St. Benedict's Prep, where he had gone to school, and I'm very familiar with St. Benedict's Prep. My father was a former, my late father, a member of the board as trustees, connected, a very close friend of Father Edwin Leahy, as I said, the headmaster. Question. He goes back to teach at St. Benedict's Prep in Newark, in the heart of Newark. Could have gone off to make a ton of money legitimately in a very different life. Why do you think he went back to St. Benedict's to teach in the school that meant so much to him?
No, that's a really good question. And it's a question, you mentioned Father Edwin Leahy, who's been the headmaster there a long time, and is an amazing person. It also was an incredible resource when I was writing this book, and especially writing the aspects of Rob's life that were not evident in college. And one of those aspects was his very intense connection to his home, Orange, New Jersey, his mother's home, his high school, a place where he truly blossomed as a young man, and drew him back. And so, you know, when I first was learning about this and having conversations with Father Edwin, it seemed kind of easy to fit Rob into this role of, you know, someone who wanted to come back and give back to people in the place he'd come from. But it seemed more complicated. Father Edwin specifically said that Rob really struggled with being there, and as you said, this potential he had to make a lot more money and maybe do quote unquote bigger things. For him, that would probably have meant going to grad school and following that path toward medicine, academia. Yeah, Father Edwin, in very poignant conversations, has said he never could quite figure out what the struggle was, and how, to what degree it involved Rob's father, who was in prison.
Can we talk about that? I'm sorry for interrupting.
During those years when he died in prison.
Jeff, sorry for interrupting. I
Yeah.
want to talk about his mom, Jacqui, mattered greatly. We'll talk about Jacqui in a second. But Rob's father, Skeet,
Steve
was in prison for life when Rob was 7 years old. In all of your research in writing this book, Jeff, what is your sense on how could you even imagine the impact it had on this boy at 7 years of age, whose father goes away? And as I understand from the book, Rob fought to get his father out because he believed in his father's innocence, and science was the way to prove that, whether it be through DNA or whatever. Question: do you have, first, how much did Rob talk about his father when at Yale, being in prison for homicide?
Yeah, it was a part of his life that Rob spoke very little about. with us at school, including teammates and people who were more a part of his kind of inner circle and girlfriends. He was very intensely private about his father. And I mean, we knew where his father was. And for instance, this was before we all had cell phones. And so his father would call the dorm room from jail. So I would answer the phone and talk to him. He was really gracious, would leave a message if Rob wasn't there. And a couple of times it might have come up. It was clear Rob did not want to talk about it, didn't want to talk about the whys, the details. He certainly didn't want to talk about the impact it had on him emotionally. Again, going back to my very first point, since it felt uncomfortable, it was very easy for people, including people he grew up with who knew him better than anybody, including people in his own family, to just not ask and figure that Rob was doing really well at school, and that he must have processed it.
Rob is killed in a drug deal, correct?
Yes.
What year?
2011, or 10 years ago.
Were you surprised?
I was, absolutely. And I didn't receive a lot of details right away. I just got a message from an old friend who had visited us in college, who said that Rob died violently. That was it. Then I remember I was sort of brushing my teeth with trying not to wake up my daughter at the time. And then as more details came out, I guess what was surprising was that he died in a chaotic act of violence that remains unsolved to this day. But I guess what was surprising was the pain of it and the pointlessness of it.
From your perspective in writing this book and researching and talking to so many people, Jeff, why does Robert Peace's life and his death matter so much?
I think about this on two levels, just because in larger groups and talking about kind of where we are as a country and education structures and all of that, those big topics. But for me personally, as a friend and also as a storyteller, and my vocation, what is important is that Rob was a very present friend to everybody, and he listened. And my problems were small. Rob's problems were very great. But he listened, and he did this for everybody. And I guess the point for me is when you know someone like this, to carry them with you and take care of them. As his mom said, when I first sat down with his mom to talk about maybe telling some stories about her son, she knew that he had influenced a lot of people in school and as an educator. And she thought that it would be nice for him to continue influencing people. And, as he did as a friend, just showing us how to be better to each other. I think that's what's important about his life.
Jeff Hobbs, author of The Short and Tragic Life of Robert Peace, a brilliant young man who left Newark for the Ivy League. After this, we'll be joined by Father Edwin Leahy, who we've mentioned several times, who will share his perspective on Robert Peace, his time at St. Benedict's, and again, why his life and his tragic death still matters. Jeff, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Steve. It means an awful lot. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Your book means an awful lot as well. I'm Steve Adubato. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
To watch more Remember Them with Steve Adubato and Jacqui Tricarico, find us online and follow us on social media.
Here at Kane University, everyone gets their chance to climb higher. Michael came to Kane and found his passion for healthcare, and now he's a doctor. After Trisha graduated, her graphic design work was featured in the New York Times. Samantha is studying athletic training and finding her path to an internship with the New York Giants. Real students, real stories, real success. Cougars climb higher. Kane University.
We're now joined by our good friend, Father Edwin Leahy, headmaster at St. Benedict's Prep, a recent inductee of New Jersey Hall of Fame. Father Ed, does it feel any different to be in the Hall of Fame?
No, it doesn't feel any different at all. In the everyday, it doesn't feel any different.
Did you take a vow that you would not allow your ego to take over? Because I did not take that one. I leave that alone. Let's talk. We saw Jeff Hobbs earlier talking about Rob Peace. You knew him. You're featured in the film, by the way. Who the heck plays it? Michael Kelly.
Michael Kelly.
Okay. You said you didn't need to see the film because you lived it. Who was Rob Peace, and why does Rob's legacy matter even more today?
Rob was a very, very bright guy who was horribly conflicted over his dad's situation. I mean, we see dozens and dozens and dozens of kids like this all the time. The best example I can give you of that conflict was Rob had graduated from here, graduated from Yale, and came back here to teach. And he was helping his coach, Dr. Cassidy, coach the water polo and the swimming team. And one day, one of the kids was not at practice. So he asked for where so-and-so was, and the response came back, he's over at the counseling center. And Rob looked at Cassidy and he said, I wish I had done that when I was here. Because he really never resolved the anger that he had relative to his dad's situation. He was always trying to work to get his dad be able to be out of prison, to get his dad. Yeah, it was this constant struggle for him, and it just kind of led him down roads that were self-destructive, right?
Father, let me ask you this, Father Ed. What did you see in Rob when he was there as a student? What did you see in him? Even though later on in the drug stuff, we already documented all that. What did you see in him?
He was a very, very, very interesting leader because he was the senior group leader his senior year in 1997, 98. And he rarely spoke at a morning meeting. You know, most senior group leaders are really the prominent person in the meeting, call it to order or dismiss the school at the end of the meeting. And if he has anything to say to the school, Rob rarely spoke. He had the assistant group leaders that worked with him do all of the talking, so that when he did speak, everybody stopped and listened. He was that kind of a guy that would share leadership, voice of the thing, and it actually amplified, interestingly, his voice, because on the few times when he did have to speak, that everybody paid attention to him.
Let me try this. The movie, the film about Rob that I did see, to what degree do you believe the discussion about Rob and the film about Rob has resonated with your students today, who are disproportionately Black and Hispanic?
Yeah, in terms of the kids seeing the movie, I've heard very little conversation. Alumni talk about it, and I'll get emails or texts after people have watched it. But I've heard very little the kids talking about it. Why that is, I'm not sure. Maybe they've watched it and just haven't, because they're doing other things or whatever. But and maybe other people have heard it here, but very little has come across my day-to-day operations with the kids.
When Rob died, what emotions, reaction did you have?
You know, it's first of all, he was buried from here. It's not the first time I've had to bury one of our guys, right? So I mean, it just makes you makes you sick because, and his is such a tragic character because he was so enormously talented, bright, a good athlete. He was good at relating to people and leading people. So it was just horrible. And but I mean, was it shocking? No, because I mean, Rob was struggling when he was here on the faculty. He was struggling with this stuff, and we
Did
talked
you know?
back. Yeah.
And did you know?
Yeah.
Did you know that he was struggling?
It was just a battle for him, right? And he as I say, we see it over and over and over again, Steve, with the effect of an absent parent on some primary relationship, right? Your mother and your father. If that relationship is fractured, damaged, it does horribly destructive things to people. And if you don't do anything, you can recover from it. You have to do something about it and engage in conversation about it. And that's what Rob wouldn't do. Ultimately, what I think was his demise, and the fact that he never addressed that in a way that could help him heal, and also probably help him forgive, right? In one sense, not only his dad, but all the stuff that Rob was the kind of guy who's probably angry at the situations that put his father in prison as well, right? So all of those things, if you don't talk about them, they'll eat you up.
His mom mattered. His mom, played by Mary J. Blige in the movie, she mattered greatly.
Huge. Yep.
Huge.
Enormously. Yes. In fact, Jeff was very good about it, Jeff Hobbs, and some of Rob's classmates are on the faculty here now. So they made sure if Jeff was coming in here to talk, that she knew it. And sometimes she was here for it. So yeah, she was very important to him, and therefore in this whole process, she was very important.
To Father Ed, thank you. To Jeff Hobbs, thank you. Jeff's book, the film, check it out. Rob Peace, important person, died way too young, tragic, but made a difference, conflicted, complex. His father's piece of this, or his relationship with his father's situation, all of it matters. Thank you, Father Edwin. Good to see you, my friend.
Okay, Steve. Good to see you. Thank you for having me.
I'm Steve Adubato for Jacqui Tricarico and our entire team. Remember Them and One-on-One. We thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.
Remember Them with Steve Adubato and Jacqui Tricarico is a production of the Caucus Educational Corporation. Funding has been provided by PSEG Foundation, NJM Insurance Group, Community Food Bank of New Jersey, the New Jersey Education Association, Horizon Blue Cross Blue Shield of New Jersey, Kane University, New Jersey Sharing Network, and by the Russell Berry Foundation. Promotional support provided by NJ.com and by ROINJ.
Here at Kane University, everyone gets their chance to climb higher. Michael came to Kane and found his passion for healthcare, and now he's a doctor. After Trisha graduated, her graphic design work was featured in the New York Times. Samantha is studying athletic training and finding her path to an internship with the New York Giants. Real students, real stories, real success. Cougars climb higher. Kane University.
New Jersey is home to the best public schools in the nation. And that didn't happen by accident. It's the result of parents, educators, and communities working together year after year to give our students a world-class education, no matter the challenge. Because parents and educators know that with a shared commitment to our public schools, our children can learn, grow, and thrive. And together, we can keep New Jersey's public schools the best in the nation.
Let's talk about the state of hunger.
The state of no hunger.
For 50 years, the Community Food Bank of New Jersey has worked to fill the emptiness caused by hunger with food, help, and hope. Now it's time to look forward. What will the next 50 years bring?
How can we, regular people like you and me, make a difference?
How can we change the state of hunger?
Can we change the state of hunger?
We can.